Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of DEO Growth Secrets. I'm your fearless host, Emmett Scott, and today I got a special guest, Dr. Kalpesh, who goes by Patel. You were telling me a fun story that you grew up in West Texas or East
East
Texas? East
Texas.
Texas.
Yeah,
Nobody could say Kalpesh.
they couldn't say it. They butchered my name when I was younger, so we had
So,
to switch out.
so you went by Kevin?
I went by Kevin after my dad and I thought about what name we're gonna go by, and Kevin Von Erich was a wrestler. I don't know if you remember him back in the day, but
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
my favorite wrestler growing up, and so we just like, yeah, that sounds good. We'll go with Kevin.
That is awesome. What was that like though? Would that feel weird or just like this is part of integrating in?
It was just part of integrating in, it just didn't. I mean, it didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So now you go by Cap.
yeah.
That's your initials. You're the CEO and founder of Active Dental, 5 location, 8 doctor group, crushing it this year. Like all of us in DEO, crushing it and getting crushed, right?
Yes.
So we'll talk about both of those. You're originally drawn to dentistry through a college dental club. So was the initial track not to go into dentistry and then you pivoted or?
Yeah, I mean, we're Patel Asian, right? And so we have to either go into some medical background or we're failures, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I just started looking into all the different medical aspects of it, right? And my family's in the hotel industry. We had a very small motel. It wasn't enough to really grow in that area. My brother went to pharmacy school. It sounded really boring, so I didn't like it. I didn't want to do that. And then I was medical, just took a lot of years and I didn't really have the passion for that. And so then I was just looking into, I went to U of H. They have the only optometry school in Texas. So I was looking into optometry and I ran into some people for dental school and I was like, "Yeah, I can do this."
That's awesome. And
Yeah,
that gave you the confidence.
it did.
Were they like really dumb, or you just are like, they're like me, or what was it that made you think dentistry is the way, like I could do this?
Yeah, we just kind of relayed together, right? And
Okay. It was the
it
culture
fit,
vibe.
the culture vibe fit. And, I just looked at the different careers and I was like, I can do this. And I applied a year early. So I applied my junior year. And I got in. So then I was like, well, we'll go.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about after college, you graduate, you become an associate, or you go right into owning a practice?
No, I worked at two different jobs. I worked at one job. I worked at a corporate company for like 6 months. That didn't last very long.
Yeah.
And
Were
then
there any
I
skills though that you picked up from being there?
absolutely, and there's things that when I left on my way out, some of the things that the reason why I left, and now I look at it and I was like, man, I really didn't know what I was doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I known, I wouldn't have left, right?
Hmm.
So definitely pick up speed, just culture, how they communicate, how they process through that. So that helped.
Yeah. Did
And
that for 6 months.
did that for 6 months. I was recruited to through people there that I knew, recruited to take on a practice in Fort Worth. And these two doctors, they had their own private practices. They joined together and partnered, did an expansion, and they hired me. So in that practice, I took over for a retiring doctor.
Okay.
We had to completely revamp everything. So it was just a doctor that was there. He was old, retired, really was just kind of patchwork dentistry. And so at that point, I gained the confidence that I was really running a practice.
Okay, so you were the associate,
Yeah,
but you were really doing the acquisition transition.
we were doing the acquisition
Did you
transition.
lose all the staff?
I lost half the staff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so you were hiring and training new people, and
just
did you
yeah.
have a strong office manager?
No, we lost them. We had to put in new protocols in. I mean, simple stuff. This was a really old practice, but none of their equipment supplies were sterilized, right? They were just in a drawer. They're sterilized, but they weren't packaged together. They were just in a drawer.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing I instituted. Was like, yeah, we can't function like this. We need to start putting these in packages and stuff. So going through that process, they got x-rays like once every 2 years. So we had to change a lot of that.
Yeah.
And during that change, I just realized I can do this myself. And I was.
It's interesting. You've probably seen this, and we'll get into your practices, but when you see opportunity of like, oh man, this practice isn't doing X, Y, and Z, at first you kind of see like the dollar signs, but the reality is you realize quickly that that means that staff and that team is trained on that bad system, right? And
Yes.
so as soon as you go to implement something better, you lose half of
you
them,
you
or
lose half
yeah,
your team and because they don't buy in, right? And
right.
that's something that I learned over the time and just in our company growth, right? And it's a cool thing. We have our leadership meeting today and we were talking about Just 2 years ago, we probably had 50% of our workforce just came to work, right? And I would say we have an 80 to 90%, the buzzword around is culture. And I would say our culture is fantastic, and 80 to 90% of our people want to be here and want to help us grow, which is exciting.
Okay, we should talk more about that.
Yeah.
So you do this first practice, you're feeling confidence of like, okay, I'm the one doing most of the heavy lifting, if you will.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're like, I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. And they actually offered to sell that practice to me.
Okay. Was that your first practice you bought or no?
No, I didn't buy it. I started a new one.
Okay. From de novo, like
De novo,
oh
from
wow.
from zero. And so that was a challenge. It was
Where was
definitely
that? Where was that at?
in Las Colinas.
Okay.
So that was our
So
first practice.
humbling experience.
Definitely a humbling experience. You walk
Because
in,
you're
you
like,
think you know
oh, yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, there was actually someone on the back end that was making sure payroll got done, that was funding all this stuff, that was, like all the stuff you don't think about when you're the associate, right?
All of that stuff, right? You think you're doing the good job as a dentist, and then
Patients will
you
just
step
come
into
in.
yeah, that no, we're learning that definitely the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did it take before, or did it ramp up fairly quickly?
No,
Or
it didn't. It,
yeah.
it it ramped up. I think I just my journey through that, I kind of phased in and out of what I wanted, right? Because I always wanted to be in business and grow multiple practices, but at the same time, I wanted to live my life. So at this point, I started my own practice. I was like 26 years old, right? Because I graduated really early. So I wanted my weekends off. I wanted to go party with my friends. I wanted to do that. And so I didn't really prioritize
You're
the
so
business.
millennial, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to prioritize the business,
Yeah.
but I did. I did want the business to grow, and I just thought it would magically happen. So just the different phases of what I wanted, what I was willing to put in, it didn't really take off until I really started working on the business.
Mm. And what did that end up looking like? What changes did you have to make for you personally, or focus on within the business to get it to that next level?
Yeah, I think, initially focusing on the business, it was more like I think I built my practice around what I wanted, my lifestyle, Saturdays off or this and that. And then we realized we had to put the practice first and the company comes first. And then so adjusting to that, because what does a customer want? Right. And
So that's the thing. You think of yourself initially as the boss, and then you realize you actually have thousands of bosses called customers, right?
yes, absolutely.
And to the extent that you align the practice with that boss, that customer, then things start to work.
Then things start to work and then they start to grow. And then as we grow past that, my customers changed, right? It's not my client, it's not my guest anymore. It is my team,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so now I have 40 bosses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the part about becoming a DSO, a dental support organization, is exactly what you said. Your customer becomes the associate, and then the patients are the customer of your customer. Right?
Yes.
And that's what you've grown into. So you decide, all right, I really do want to grow this business. I'm going to make some personal sacrifices. I'm going to work more. What did that end up looking like? Like how many hours was this like now you're like all in to get it going? Like
Yeah,
it's like
for me,
50 hours a week kind of feel or what?
it probably was 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Clinically, it was 32 to 40 hours a week,
Yeah.
right? And then after hours, conferences, podcasts, different friends groups that we're working
Payroll,
with,
figuring out
payroll and figuring out all that from the business side of it, accounting, all that stuff. So it was, but a lot of that stuff didn't feel like work,
because you
right?
were passionate about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I often think like so much of life is about the meaning that we attribute to something. Like if I was just sitting here and all of a sudden my heart rate went to 170 and I start sweating, like we've got a problem,
Yes.
But if I'm over at Lifetime Fitness in a gym, right, then I'm like, this is awesome. Like I'm pushing myself,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot about that because sometimes what can happen in life is we're sweating and our heart rate's up. And it's like, so what context do I want to give to this? Right. So it sounds like part of the context you gave is you, and I'm curious how you did this, how you made that flip from being so lifestyle oriented to saying, I'm going to make these sacrifices, but I'm actually going to look at this as what was it? Was it a learning opportunity? Was it a personal development thing?
It was actually two things, right? One is I went to a Dykema conference and those are amazing, by the way. And it just woke me up to what's available out there.
Uh-huh.
The second one is my son was born.
Mm.
And when my son was born, he was in the hospital for a while. And I really started looking back at why am I doing this? And so I think something that helped me grow a lot, which I didn't really do, is I never set goals. I set goals, but I never really wrote them down or followed them, never looked out 2, 3 years in advance, just kind of looked at the next month, the next day, right? And looking out 3 years, like what do I really want to be in 3 years, really just helped me understand how much I need to put in today. So when my son was born, I really wanted to grow my business and grow my lifestyle. I still want my lifestyle, but I wanted my lifestyle to be with him and be with my family. And I realized, and part of it is he was in the hospital for 5 months. He was a NICU
Oh, wow.
baby. So
Wow.
it just kind of changed perspective of
Mm.
why we're doing what we're doing.
Mhm.
And I realized that I wanted more time with the family. And if I want more time with the family, going down the path of being a clinical dentist is always going to limit me
Mm.
to that because the patients want to see me. They want to grow that. So we had to adjust to see this. So I recognize that I need to set a 3 year goal, put some time and energy in now so that we can ramp this up so that we can start converting it to where I can have the lifestyle that I want.
That took a lot of maturity change because to go from I want to have more time with my child, therefore I'm going to not have more time with my family, um, that was a big upgrade,
It was a definite upgrade. It was something I needed to talk with my wife about. And, I was telling her, and I was like, hey, I need you to listen. And she's like, you're going to do what you do anyway. You're not going to listen to me. And I was like, no, no, I really need you to listen to me here because
Yeah.
this is what this plan looks
Alignment's
like.
critical. Yeah.
Yeah, she told me you have 2 years
Mm.
to get it right, or you're going back to work like normal.
Uh-huh.
So it puts a stress and pressure on to make sure it works.
Yeah. What was one of the first things from that new journey as your practice starts to build and you start, I mean, thinking about what, bringing in an associate, or did you go do a second practice before you optimized that first one?
So we actually partnered. I have a partner, and so I partnered with him, and he had a second practice. But it always functioned like a different practice. It wasn't part of our group. It was, we had the same name and everything, but the teams were separate. It never functioned as one pair. And then the next step was bringing on an associate. So I brought on my first associate and just kind of started handing things off. Your mindset changes because, production for me doesn't matter as much,
Mm.
right? It's not my paycheck. It's like, how's the company doing overall? So that mindset really helped grow where we are now.
That first associate is so tough because a lot of times you're an S corp, you're doing distributions, you haven't really calculated the fact that part of that distribution is actually your associate pay.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So you bring that associate in, all of a sudden your comp goes down. You're like, wait, where did that happen
Yeah.
from? And you realize that, oh yeah, I needed to calculate. So how did you end up making that transition? Was it additional? Like they had other patients and you still had all your patients? Did you adjust your personal lifestyle to match, or how did you have your
Yeah,
income?
no, we definitely adjust our personal lifestyle, right? We just didn't spend as much. We didn't, live as, we cut back on vacations and things like that we did. So it's definitely there. And then really, because of the 60 hours, I kind of went back to getting a lifestyle, right? To where I put in not 60 hours, but 45 hours. And so I trimmed my clinical, gave that to the associate so that I could work on my business during the other times.
Okay, that's a big sacrifice. How did you start to build up for that second practice? I mean, how did that, or that third practice, how did that happen?
Yeah, the third practice, actually, I was just sitting with a friend of mine that's one of my best friends from college, and we were talking about how to do this. And so we actually picked up a couple of business partners, and we didn't do just three, we did 3, 4, and 5
Oh, wow.
within a 1 year span. And so we partnered with him. We have since taken them out. But that really,
Meaning you bought them out.
I
You
bought them
didn't,
out,
not
yeah.
like you sent the mafia
No,
somewhere.
no, we didn't send them off. No, no, we bought them out.
Yeah.
That really just gave me the confidence to fully exit the chair, right? And I talked to my wife, and it's like, we're gonna cut our paycheck all the way down to just minimal, right? And so we're just gonna adjust our lifestyle for a year. And this was me being the kind of person I want to be, is like I'm always saving money. And if we're not saving half our money, then we're doing something wrong. And this is probably the 1 year that I was like, we're just going to live kind of paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And we earned enough to live our lifestyle. Nothing extravagant, but most of it was invested back into the company.
Walk me through a crisis that happened in this journey that you had to navigate. What was one of the worst moments?
Yeah, I think the worst moment is when you open two practices and they're not they're not producing, right? And then you're not earning the money that you used to make because you're not practicing as a dentist, right?
Yeah,
And so cash flow crunch is a real thing,
yeah.
right? And then just figuring out how to
And more
navigate it.
locations doesn't magically solve it,
It
right?
does not. And so I was actually talking to an associate today, a potential associate to bring on board and, talk about our growth. And we're selectively growing, right? And more specifically, targetly growing. And we'll grow slower than most DSOs, um, but for that reason.
Wisely, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see as your next step as like most important things as you look out for 2026?
Yeah, that's awesome that you talked about. We talked about it today. So 2026, we're getting all of our departments correct. So I never thought I needed to be a platform or build that. And that's what we're doing. We started doing it in 25. So just going through each of our departments and putting rocks in for them, right? And developing each department up to a par. I want them ready to perform that if I want to buy a practice, I can buy a practice and I don't have to do anything specific. I can hand the keys to each department, to my department, and they can take it and run with it.
What drove you to join DEO?
Initially DEO, I think I had a friend that was in it, and Amit maybe, and he
Yeah,
had recommended it, said he'd liked it, so we did that. DEO has so much resource that it was just amazing. It was almost overkill though, right?
yeah.
And so, like with anything, you get really infatuated with it. You're diving down into everything. You're watching every video and all these things. I got a lot really out of the seminars and the conferences you guys had, right? I made such a good group of friends through that that I can text anytime I want now. So that really supported, they're going through the same journey we're going through.
Yeah,
So when you talk to other dentists around and you have other dentist friends, they don't understand the same challenges we're going through as you do other entrepreneurs,
right.
right? Uh, and then I left because I wasn't paying attention to it anymore.
Yeah.
And I had my friends already. And so I looked at one point, it probably been 6 months before I logged into the EO app. And so I was like, I'm not really using this. Let me exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then I came back, right? We had a consultant for our practice. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned with a consultant is accountability. It's one of our core values, right? It's what the A stands for. I'm not accountable to myself, right? I'm accountable to other people, but I'm not accountable to myself, which is weird saying that. And then I had to realize I need to be accountable to our company. I need to be accountable to Active Dental, right?
Mm.
And the coach and consultant really helped me with that. And our consulting period was ending. I was realizing that our company absolutely needs a coach. And so I reached out to Darren, and Darren had told me about how you guys changed everything now.
Mhm.
And you're coach specific, right? That's number one on your priority list. And so that guidance, that accountability. And so I really loved that. And I loved being in the DO at the beginning. So it was just nice to come back.
On your departments, as you get these organized, what's the department you think or the focus that will provide you the most leverage? If you had to prioritize, right?
Yeah.
Say, all right, this is the one that I think is going to be most important for us at 5 locations.
So our number one thing is we're going to build a strategic scheduling center,
Mm.
right? We have a few people outsourced that are answering calls, right?
Mm.
And we have one person that's kind of working on that. But we really need to optimize our schedule, right? And so it's going to be intake of calls, but also it's now going to go into outtake, right? Outgoing calls, and then how are we managing schedule? How are we filling the schedule? And they're going to be in cahoots with our marketing department to say, hey, this is our hygiene capacity. This is how full we are. We need to ramp up marketing.
Mhm.
Or, you know what, we're full. We can actually trim down the budget on marketing right now. So I do think that our strategic scheduling is going to be the biggest part.
Sometimes as you scale, you realize you get back to just the basics of things. Like people think you're doing a bunch of innovative new stuff. A lot of times you're actually going, I just need to do the fundamentals better.
We just need to answer the phones
Yeah.
and get people scheduled, right? The simple of that, right? Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you were talking to a single practice and they're like, okay, when I get to 5 locations, I want to do what you're doing. What would you tell them to just start figuring out now that would provide, or if you could go back to your original self?
Yeah, I think my original practice, I think I was a doctor and the dentist, and I felt like I could make it work and make everything go, right?
As long
Um,
as your clinical capability kept going up, you were fine.
Yeah, that's what I thought, right? And you realize there's a lot more to it, right? Because the phone has to ring, so your marketing has to work, right? But when the phone rings, who's answering the phone and how are they answering the phone? So just basics of looking at what the patient journey is. We call it our path to success, right? But the lead generation that goes out there, but then who's answering the calls and are they answering the calls properly and are they answering the calls the way you want them? Do you have the availability to get people in, right? The clients, they want to get in now, right? They want to get
Yeah.
in the next couple of days. If you're scheduling them out 2, 3 weeks, that's probably not going to work for you. They're going to find somebody else to go to. So I think that's where I would start is where's your phones? What are you looking at? And then looking through that process and just going down, what is the patient's journey when they come into your office?
It's interesting because, we had 70 locations and we looked at the data. If there wasn't availability 3 days out, the show rate drop off was really clear.
Yeah.
I've talked to several different industries, and I'll tell you, even for DEO, if we don't have availability to talk to Darren or Daniel within 3 days, our show rate for doctors joining DEO goes down. There's something about humans that 72 hours is about all the tolerance we have.
Yeah, we're in it until we forget it, right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
move on to something else.
That phone answer, people get really excited about marketing strategies, but then it's just a leaky bucket
It is.
out. Have you tried layering in any technologies at this point?
Yeah, so
What
we
have you
actually use
played around?
AI for our
Yeah,
phone answering,
yeah.
right? Because that's part of
Are
the
you using
thing.
that just for overflow, or are you using that to rate calls, or are you using that for, what's the
All
different
of the
parts?
above.
Really?
Yeah, so we've gone through some different companies
Yeah.
just for calls transcription and being able to get some data on it, right? And then this year we turned on AI to answer calls. And
Okay.
so initially we were doing overflow because we're missing calls, right?
Yeah.
And we realized even if we capture 10% of what we missed, it's still better, right? And then at times, we're patient experience company, right? Well, if you want to deliver the patient experience, you can't be on the phone when a patient walks in to check in, right?
Mm.
And so navigating that piece to it to where can AI help us? And so we're working with a couple of different companies,
Yeah.
right?
You can talk through a couple of them. I know
Yeah,
they could change,
yeah. So
full disclosure,
we're
right?
working with Neurality right now,
Okay.
with a couple of offices, and they are answering all our calls,
Okay.
right? And I've actually had friends that will tell me like they were fooled. They didn't realize it was AI,
Uh-huh.
right?
Interesting.
We're also working with Neo outside of that's inside of Voice Stack,
Okay.
right? And I think they're launching theirs,
Yeah.
and so we're beta testing it for them, and it's working out really well.
You've been using Voice Stack for a bit,
Yeah,
correct? And what did you get out of that value? Because you layered it in pretty early on
yeah,
for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been a part of CareStack forever,
Okay.
right? Like since when it first came out, we're probably one of the first 200 clients or 100 clients in CareStack. So we've grown with CareStack as a software, and when they launched VoiceStack, it was great because we had other phone companies, but they didn't mix with CareStack.
Okay.
And then being able to track the data on this, it's phenomenal. So that's one of the first things I'm going to do in the first quarter of next year is dive into that strategic scheduling department because there's so many missed opportunities and things that it can give you that we're not even capitalizing on right now. So
Mhm.
I know we talk about marketing and ads and new clients. There's clients on our phone call history that we're not even touching yet. So we just got to get better at that.
I remember I was talking with Bob Fontana, who, founder, CEO of Aspen,
Yeah.
and I think they were at about a billion now. They might be at 3 billion or more now, but they were a billion when I chatted with them. And it was right post COVID, during COVID-ish, as ADSO president. So I got to chat with those guys, and the conversation came up around integrating healthcare in, right? That
Yeah.
became a big thing. Should we put in healthcare in? And so you would think someone of that scale, he's all over that. And so I heard him and another CEO talking and said, so are you thinking about putting healthcare in? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, still trying to get my phone answer better. All right, if he's got to get him better, I
We've
definitely
got to
have
get
to
ours
get,
better.
yeah. And he's like, there's so many things that are just little things that get missed that we can continue to improve. Now if you've ever worked in their system, like the amount of culture and layers, like these companies don't get that size by being terrible. And so I think it's just a good reminder to keep coming back to the fundamentals. I think it's one of the hardest things as being an entrepreneur. So again, really impressed how fast you kind of have this story of like mature, mature, mature. But most of the time, practice owners at your scale are still really fascinated with like, I just want to open another practice. I just want to open another practice because the dopamine's there, the
Yes.
cortisol's there, and getting financials organized, getting the phone answer rate better, getting systems and process, the customer experience nailed down. It just doesn't have the same dopamine, right? As I tell people, it just ends up making you a lot of money. But what do you think helped you flip from like being fascinated by all the shiny to be like, okay, I'm going to get to fundamentals?
Yeah, I think that cash crunch that I was telling you
Yeah.
about, it gets you, wakes you up real fast, right?
Yeah.
When we did that, and it was like, okay, hey, I'm not making much money because I'm taking minimal pay out of this thing, and then now I'm having to fund back into it a little bit.
Mhm.
Really wakes you up, and it just made me realize like, why am I doing all this? So again, now I do pretty good every year at having a 3-year goal, right? And then resetting that goal each year, right?
Mhm.
And then strategically planning out what 2026 looks like. So I kind of did this the first time, really. We had these goals, but last year for 2025, we set these goals, and it wasn't just a financial goal. It was like, what are we going to look like? And at the end of the year, we missed our financial goal. Okay. We definitely grew 30%. So we still did really well. We just had an aggressive goal.
Okay.
But all of our other departmental goals, all of our other company goals have grown and we succeeded at those.
Mm.
And so when you're looking back, as I'm doing 26 goals, I'm looking back at 25 goals, where you failed and where you succeeded. It's like overall, we did a really great year this year, you know? And historically, I don't think I would have said that because we missed our financial goals, like, oh, we sucked.
Yeah. You're starting to measure progress holistically as a personal development, as a company development, all of these different metrics, right, are
Yes.
becoming important to you.
Yeah, each one of those become important. And this year we're going to concentrate on developing people,
Yeah.
right? It's culture based, we're people based. It's not going to change that. As much as I can bring AI in to, help support that, we're still always going to be a people first, right? I don't see dentistry, I don't see a robot drilling on teeth anytime soon.
I think customers would be pretty nervous still. Um, it's interesting that transition that you've gone through again so quickly because in the beginning, it really is all about you.
Yeah.
It's all about you and getting better at your clinical skills, being a dynamic leader, all of these things that it's like me, me, me. And again, there's a lot of ego and dopamine to that. When the success is going to be driven by the team, like when you have that click where it's like, actually, all my brilliant ideas have to be executed through someone at 15, $20 an hour. Really, my constraint is how good am I as a leader? And then you're like, okay, I'm an A student over here. I suck at this part, right? And so then now there's this, am I willing to lean in and develop in all these things I'm not good at?
Yes, that's exactly right. I think that was the challenge, right? And that's when you meet some people at the DEO and they tell you, and you look at them and you're seeing, who is speaking, and who's talking, and you start looking at how they're doing it, right? And that's the part that pushed me,
Mhm.
right? You start reading different books, you're going through different opportunities and areas of growth. What I realized is the growth of the company is really reliant on my personal growth, right?
Mhm.
And it's not my clinical skill growth, right? And it was not a communication skill growth, right? It is a little bit of communication, is how you communicate with your team.
Yeah.
It wasn't a sales goal growth, right? It was just how can I be a better leader?
You were great with customers. Now you had to be that good with team members.
Yeah, and if it's really easy to do. You just have to use the same way you talk to your patients, you do it to your team too. But for some reason, we get nervous when it comes to that point, or we get more personal, right? And
A little
if a
entitled
team
too.
does a little entitled,
Because I think we're like customers are paying us, we're paying team,
yeah,
though I think we don't realize like, well, really the team's driving that revenue. So I think sometimes it can be really hard with associates that we need to treat them like customers because we're like, we're looking at the checks we're paying them and we think they should just do it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, making that transition to think of them as the customer that we're taking care of and we're developing into is a big
Yeah, that
jump.
definitely helped. I brought in a really good director of operations 2 years ago, which just it freed my mind of all the clutter. So I think, I actually stopped practicing dentistry and then stopped running my business at the same time, freed me up, and I think that's what helped me really get to where we're at now.
Mhm. As you look at the side of things, anything other than phone answer and AI that you're excited about? Are you using any X-ray AI with the
Yeah,
associates
so
yet?
we are using what is it, Pearl right now.
Yeah.
We're looking into Overjet. All
Hmm.
right, and we're just gonna A/B test them both. Again, here's a situation where I would have tested them both and picked the one that I like or whatever it is based on, finances or money or, how they work. And we're talking about associates, they're my customers, right? And so I'm gonna have them test it. I'm gonna have my
Cool.
team pick which one they like better. And then I'm gonna have them explain why they like which one better.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we are, I am tech friendly. I am AI, like nerding out over AI.
Yeah. Anything else you're excited about for 2026?
I think just our goals and how we're going to do it. I don't know where the economy is going to settle in. Luckily, we're in Texas, so hopefully we're a little bit, sheltered compared to other people.
Yeah.
But just our growth for 2026, I'm excited about that and definitely looking to pick up a couple of locations next year.
Dr. Cap, thank you so much. Anything else you'd want to say to, somebody who's maybe at that beginning stage, single practice, trying to figure things out? Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this, and I think, number one advice is to know your limits, right?
Mhm.
And look at your limits and understand your limits, right? And you can do two things with your limits, right? You can build inside of the framework of your limits and just succeed extremely well there. Or you can look at your limits and say, I'm not happy with that. And you can go out and research and figure out and lean on the coaches here at DEO, right? Lean on your friends and associates to be able to push you past your limits and grow with that. So I think knowing your limitations are going to be really key for what you choose to do next.
Yeah, there's a word for that called humility,
Yeah.
right? So, and then playing the long game in all of this, right? You've been willing to give up some of the instant gratification. This hasn't been like, all right, I'm going to get going, and if this doesn't get solved in 30 days, you've made some real sacrifices to get to this point. But congratulations on your growth. It's awesome. I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable and sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love being here, so I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
good to have you on the
Yeah.
podcast. All right, if you guys want more info, want to learn how Dr. Cap here has gotten where he's at, you can come join us in DEO at DEO Dental Group. And until next time, keep smiling.